Now, the Brookings Institute says the number of Nigerians in extreme poverty increases by 6 people every second, and as at May 2018, and their estimates also show that about 87 million people are living in extreme poverty. Serah Makka-Ugbagbe, Nigeria Country Director for One Campaign, joins us from Abuja to discuss steps that the government can take to reduce the rate of poverty in Nigeria. Sarah, thank you for joining us today. Now, in response to when this report first came out, obviously the federal government did respond, and they say that they're already embarking on some social schemes to empower those at the bottom of the ladder. Schemes like Trader Money and Empower. What are your thoughts on how that, as a policy to address the poverty issue in Nigeria, how that, if that is effective at the moment?
Thank you, Esther. You know, at the end of the day, the scale of jobs we require in Nigeria is large. 3.5 million young people are coming to the workforce every single day. So for Nigeria to absorb and create jobs for those people, we need at least 3 million jobs every year. Now, things like Trader Money and Empower are providing jobs, but at what scale? So we need to question the scale. Secondly, the government does not create jobs in the scale that it requires. The private sector creates jobs. We did a poll for 170,000 Nigerians to say, what do you want the incoming government, what one thing do you want them to focus on as they come into power in 2019? Clear answer, job creation. We know, looking at MBS's data, that Nigeria private sector creates 99.9% of the jobs. No matter how many jobs the federal government creates or the state government creates, it's only about 0.1% of the jobs we require. So the tilt really should be, how do we enable the private sector to create more jobs? What are the high multiplier sectors that we need to focus on? Is it tech? Is it agriculture? What absorbs a lot of young people and unemployed people so we can create quality jobs for them? Again, government as a job creator is not a sustainable mechanism.
Now, talking about those sectors that have multiplier effect, talking about jobs, the agri sector is labor intensive, and we know that it's enjoyed a lot of support from the federal government, especially in the last 2-3 years. But we haven't seen that traction. We haven't seen it moving the needle, as it were. Do you think that perhaps we just need more time for that to begin to have the desired effect that we will want to see?
You know, I think it's a place of emphasis. I know that the federal government and the government has created some emphasis on agriculture as a place for job creation, but at the end of the day, we really need to look at the value chain of agriculture. Do we have the right storage system? Do we have the right transportation system? It's not enough to focus on inputs or to focus on having a farmer to go and harvest a crop. What happens when their crop is harvested? Who are the off-takers? Where's the market that they sell their crops at? How do they store their crops so they don't have 60% rotting to get from Kano State to Lagos State? So those infrastructure rails, those things that support agriculture, the value chain of agriculture, we need a lot more focus on. It's very appealing to focus on, we trained X number of farmers, but at the end of the day, those farmers need markets, they need roads, they need storage system, they need inputs. What's the quality of our seeds, fertilizer? They need all these things to make sure that we see an uptake in agriculture. And agriculture alone is not a sector we should focus on. It's a starting place, but it's not the end point, because as the world is progressing, what quality of jobs is agriculture providing? And is that the quality of jobs we want our young people and Nigerians to have? How do we, when we infuse technology into agriculture, where do we see drops taper off? Is it the way of the future? So yes, agriculture is a starting place, but it's not the place where we end up at. We really do need to take a critical look at other sectors, like the tech sector, like other sectors that will absorb manufacturing, perhaps absorb a lot more human capital so that we can get more jobs for our young people.
Now, Sarah, a lot has been said about how China has taken out a lot of people out of poverty. I mean, just latest report that we're getting that we have says that China has lifted over 68 million people out of poverty in the last 5 years. Now, the question is, can Nigeria emulate the model that China has used to continuously take people out of poverty?
You know, I think that China has had a very strong focus on labor-intensive sectors. Where do we need people to work? And they would, you know, start a project in a different country and bring their people to that country. They were very, very focused on the labor intensity. I think it's one area we can look at. However, the world has changed since China started their own labor expansion policy. So where is Nigeria, and where do we find ourselves in the context of 2019? We still have a human capital development challenges. So as we prepare our young people, as we prepare Nigerians for the new labor force, are we adequately preparing them? So perhaps China has focused on brick builders and labor intensity, just using manpower. But can we be smarter around, are our people equipped to create new jobs in different sectors that require different kinds of educational skills? I think Nigeria, we just need to have a hard look at our makeup, hard look at our demographic of our population, and the context in which we find ourselves in the 21st century, in 2019. As other countries progress with artificial intelligence, are we still focusing on sort of the ABC of job creation, or are we advancing so that we can catch up with the needs of the population? So it's not a cut and paste mechanism. I think we need to do the hard work of thinking of what Nigeria has, where Nigeria is, and what Nigeria needs to be in the future.
Okay, I mean, finally, so where would you say would be a good starting point? I mean, we're going for another 4 years with the current government. From a policy perspective, where do you think would be a good starting point?
You know, I think when we look at our economic recovery growth plan, there was quite a bit of emphasis on agriculture, on infrastructure. I think infrastructure is embedded in everything we do, whether we're looking at building on agriculture or looking at building a tech sector. The infrastructure layout is very important. You know, as beastly as it is, our power, we need to fix this power situation, because it's, again, the bedrock that we build our entrepreneurs. How do the smallholder farmers process their products? How do they ship their products? How do they store their products? They probably need power. How do the SMEs in the creative industry who are making products that are exportable, they need power. So we really do need to look at the bedrock that helps us create jobs.
Serah, thank you so much for sharing your perspective with us today. Serah Makka-Ugbagbe, Nigeria Country Director for One Campaign.